But then you get into this space in life where you get really good at managing your time. And what I call time management is really managing your time around other people's priorities, other people's responsibilities. And we don't take care of ourselves, and we wind up becoming what I like to call resentful martyrs. That's the problem with time management. The better you get at it, the actually worse your life gets.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to A Work in Purpose, the podcast where we explore the journeys and insights from people who are actually living out their purpose, so you too can gain the clarity and inspiration you need to discover and step into your purpose. My name is Wing, your host. So as we know, we only have so much time in a day, yet our to-do lists never seem to end. And then one day, we wake up finding ourselves having spent our lives simply just doing task after task. And then we wonder, am I really doing what I should be doing? Doing what really matters? Doing something that actually gets me closer to the life I want to lead? Perhaps you're trying to start your own solopreneur business, or you're trying to balance work and home life. Or maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or unclear about the direction you want your life to go. If that sounds like you, then this episode is jam-packed with incredible, actionable advice for you. Today, I'm joined by Robert Heath Sr. He's the CEO of Legacy Leadership Consulting Group. He's a serial entrepreneur and the author of this incredible book called Thriving in Chaos. Before that, he was a Marine Corps commander, a lawyer, and a teacher. And Robert is here to help us understand how to navigate the chaos of everyday life and align our time with what truly matters. In this episode, Robert's going to clarify the key difference between time management and time mastery. He shares his practical 5-step framework to help you define your North Star, align your priorities, and enforce boundaries, all while creating habits that support long-term transformation. So, if you're ready to learn not just how to thrive in chaos, but to also thrive in your purpose, then let's dive right in. Hello, welcome to A Work in Purpose, Robert Heath Sr. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure being here, Wayne.
Yeah, so you are the CEO of the Legacy Leadership Consulting Group, and you've had a really fascinating career. You were a teacher, lawyer, commander in the Marines, and now you're a serial entrepreneur and also the author of this book, Thriving in Chaos. Wow. So I would like to start by asking you, where would you say you are at on your purpose journey right now? Have you discovered it, living it, amplifying it? Where are you now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and thank you again for having me today. I'm really. I think I was just at a graduation for a group that I volunteer with, and there's a program called Jobs for Life, where men who have had some issues in their past are working to learn how to get not just jobs but careers. And one of the speakers, they said, we're either in one of three places in our lives. We're either going into a storm, in the middle of a storm, or coming out of a storm. And I thought that was really apropos because, especially as an entrepreneur, you feel chaos a lot. And so I guess if I was looking at my entire journey, I think that I'm probably, if I'm being honest, I'm in the middle of a storm, moving into the coming out of a storm. But on the larger scale, to your question, feel like I'm in that space where I know what my purpose is. I'm moving in harmony with my purpose. And now I'm getting prepared for the next level of the journey. That will be kind of my explanation of that. There's some things that I know that are in the future from what I have done. And there's this season that I'm going through right now. I feel like there's a preparation that's happening for some amazing things.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. So it sounds like you're in like a purpose transitional period. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely transitional period. Yeah.
Okay. So what is it, the purpose you're transitioning from? Where were you, or where are you right now?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And to give a little bit of context, I firmly believe that everybody has kind of a life purpose, a definite purpose. And so if we're looking at my life purpose, right? My life's purpose is to help as many people as I can to begin to manifest their greatness, manifest the greatness that is within inside of them, to align themselves with their life purpose and to increase the number of people that are doing that. However, that shows up in different ways throughout my life. As you said, I've been a teacher. I've been a basketball coach. I've been a jiu-jitsu instructor. I've been a Marine Corps officer. I've been a defense counsel, right? And I've run a number of different businesses. And so in each stage, I'm getting prepared, or I'm moving from a purpose driven opportunity, which is helping people and growing people, to another one. And now I feel like where I'm moving from is kind of solopreneurship and individual entrepreneurship to really looking at running multiple companies and doing things at a much grander scale. Over the last 7 years, I built my consulting group, and it was me and a team doing things. And now we're at the space where I'm really moving into doing some consulting for equity projects, doing some projects where I'm even just coaching or an equity partner in a business. And so there's a number of things that we're doing where the group that I'm part of and the projects that I'm part of are starting to grow exponentially. And so it's not just running one thing and having focus on one thing. It's being able to be focused enough in this room and then move to another room and be present and focused enough and move to another room and be present and focused enough. So that's kind of, to answer your question, I think that's it's from focusing on one thing to being able to shift focus and manage many things at once.
I think what you just mentioned is such a great segue to talk about your book, Thriving in Chaos, because you're doing so many things. And let's talk more about that. Because, so your book, I think it's like such a trove of so many great best practices for time mastery, and it's all in one source and so well written with like great stories and actionable insights.
Thank you
And
so
what
much.
you emphasize in the book is the key difference between time mastery and time management. Can you share what that difference is?
Yeah, no, I love the fact you bring that up, because that's one of the key things that I like to teach a lot of my students. And, a lot of people, especially highly successful people, high achievers, right? People who get busy, right? And busy and productive because we become the quote unquote go-to people, right? You don't become the go-to person if you're not good at managing your time. If you're not good at holding a schedule and getting things done, right? People don't come and ask you. There's a whole group of people that people don't ask them to do stuff because they know that they'll say yes, but it'll never get done, right? But then you get into this space in life where you get really good at managing your time. And what I call time management is really managing your time around other people's priorities, other people's responsibilities. You get really good at figuring out how you can fit other people in. And what normally happens is we squeeze time out for ourselves and we don't take care of ourselves, and we wind up becoming what I like to call resentful martyrs, right? We lay down ourselves. We are the ultimate team player. We don't do what we want to do because we can see the greater good, because we can see the bigger need. But over time, it's really frustrating. Over time, it feels like there's never any time for us. It starts to feel like we're never filling our cup. We're always pouring from an empty cup. And so that's the problem with time management. The better you get at it, the actually worse your life gets, right? And so one of the things that I try to teach people is the fact that at the end of the day, there's one person that's making decisions about your time, and that's you. And we've got to get away from the tyranny of the or, where I can either take care of the other person or I can take care of me. And we've got to start realizing that there's a better solution, a transcendent solution, a both and synergistic solution, which is when we start asking ourselves the question, how do I take care of you and me? That's when you begin to master your time. You begin to figure out how can you get more and more and more done with the same 24 hours that you have. And the way that you get more done is not by taking on more to do yourself, but by enlisting other people and creating synergistic, collaborative relationships with other people to get more done. Because now, if it's you and I, instead of it being 1 hour, there's 2 hours of work that can get done.
Wow. Yeah. So what would be the first step in order to master time?
Yeah. So the first step, and this is one of the things a lot of people struggle with, right? The first step is defining success. And oftentimes, a lot of my students and a lot of my clients think that they understand what they want, right? And if you ask people what they want, they'll generally tell you. And it'll sound something like, right, I want to not have to go to to work when I don't want to. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. The problem with those types of definitions is they're very vague. They don't really mean anything. And when we want to define success, we've really got to get clear on where we're going, because if you don't know where you're going, you can't distinguish between the best ways to get there. Everything looks the same, right? As a matter of fact, there's an old saying that goes, if you don't know where you're going, any way will do. And so the first step is you got to figure out how to define success. Now there's 4 other steps to this process, right? So you define success, you then set and align your priorities, you then actually put your priorities, schedule your priorities onto your calendar. The 4th thing then is to handle interruptions, or to, in what I like to call, set and enforce boundaries. And then the 5th step, of course, is to sustain the transformation. But each of those steps can't happen if you don't know where you're going. And so many people don't know where they're going because they only know what they're trying to do right now, but that's not the destination. That's just a stop along the way. And so if you remember when we first started talking, you asked me kind of about what my purpose was and how it was shifting. But I talked to you a little bit more about my life purpose, because see, that's the thing, that's your North Star. That's the thing that helps you to stay on course. Even if you may get blown off, even if you may have to go around an obstacle, whatever the case may be, if you know where you're trying to go, and you can see that North Star is what helps you to navigate. It helps you to get back on course. It helps you to stay true to your destination, even when you're getting buffeted by the winds and the waves of the chaos that life brings.
And what are some things people can do to have a better idea of what that North Star is?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think the first thing is to realize that oftentimes when we try to sit down and think about what we want, we get stuck in what I like to call the don't wants. Right? If you ever had that experience where you getting ready to go out with friends and everybody's like, man, I'm hungry. Yeah, I'm hungry too. And then it's like, where you want to go? I don't know. You pick. And then of course you make it. Let's go get some sushi. No, I'm not really in the mood for sushi. I had sushi on Tuesday. Okay, well, let's go get a salad at this health food restaurant. No, I'm not really good for salad. I'm hungry. I want something really hearty. All right, well, let's go get a burger. I'm not eating beef right now, so I don't really want to do that. And so you go through this process, and and after a while, you're like, look, I'm going to go get what I want. You figure out what you want. We'll talk later, right? There's this frustration that builds because people are really good at telling you what they don't want, even if they don't know what they want. When we do that to ourselves. And also, the second thing that we do is when we think about what we want, we immediately, especially people who are good, who are high achievers, who excel at getting things done, we start trying to figure out how to get there before we ever get clear on what it looks like. And what that creates is it creates a lot of limiting beliefs before we ever get clear on the journey, right? We start looking at the fact that we don't know how to get there, and it starts clouding our judgment on whether we want to be there and whether that's what good looks like or not. So the first thing that I would tell people to do is don't look at what you don't want. Get very clear on what you want, on what makes your heart sing, on what actually lights you up inside when you think about it. And one of the activities that I have my clients do when we're trying to figure this out is I have them create a list of just 25 things that they love, right? So they go through their life and think about things that you've done at any point in time of your life, and something that when you do it, it just is fun, right? You have this nostalgic memory of doing it, or things that you would love to do that you may have never done before, but you know, every time you think about it, it's like, oh, that's so awesome. That's my dream trip. That's my dream, whatever. But make a list of 25 things that you love, because it'll get your mind into the space of understanding what that feeling is of being in alignment and being resonant with what your purpose is.
Yeah, I love that. Getting food metaphor. I think everyone can relate to that. And also love that exercise of creating a list of 25 things. So it sounds like once you have that list, then the next thing would be to just experiment and see which one truly likes you out of those 25. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the list is just, the list is an activity just to get you into the right mindset, into the right frame of reference, right? There's a lot of introspection that has to happen when you're trying to look at what you want as well. One of the things that I do for my clients is I take them through a guided meditation that actually helps them to really learn to feel the resonance, because there's a whole scientific portion about how most of what we pay attention to and most of what we think we know is in the conscious mind, but actually most of what we know is in our subconscious, right? And the subconscious brain can process over 2 million bits of information a second, whereas the conscious mind can only process about 40 to 50 bits a second, right? So a Nintendo 64 processes more information than the conscious mind does per second, right?
Mm.
And so what that means is oftentimes the things that we know at a deep level are not what we can process at a conscious level. And so we have to learn to tap back into that intuition, back into that deep knowledge that we have, that our subconscious mind knows to be true. And I'm a firm believer that everybody is here for a purpose. Everybody has divine purpose and a reason for being on this planet. Every day that you wake up, every day that your eyes see the light, every day that you breathe air into your lungs, that's because there's still a reason for you to be here. There's still a purpose for you to fulfill. And I believe that's encoded in each one of us. But however, we've oftentimes lost the ability to actually hear that and to resonate with that purpose. And so one of the things that I do with my clients is I'll take them through a guided meditation, an activity where they can learn to get back into harmony and get back into resonance with who they really are and with that divine purpose. And then so from there, once they understand what that purpose is and what their gifts are, and looking at, what they've seen, what they've been given as a vision of their future already. Once we look at that and once we understand that, now we can start looking at everything else that you're thinking about doing. And this is where step 2 comes into play, and setting and aligning them and prioritizing those things, because sometimes we have visions of things that we're going to do 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and we're trying to make it happen right now when this isn't the step forward. And a lot of times it gets overwhelming for people.
Mm.
And one of the things I teach my clients all the time is, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? We've got to break it down. We've got to put it into the right order. And there's a chess analogy that I love. Patrick Bet-David gives this analogy in his book, Your Next 5 Moves. And he talks about the fact how, master chess players think 20, 25 moves ahead in a chess match. Your ability to strategize is nice, but it also requires your ability to be disciplined to the plan, because if you do step 14 when you're supposed to do step 2, you're going to lose, just like if you were a novice. Right? And that's the thing that so many of us have to realize. It's not just about knowing what success looks like, but then it's about breaking that down and being able to prioritize what success look like now, what success look like in the midterm, what success look like in the long term, and what success look like for your entire life.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. So let's touch on the next step a bit further. So you mentioned it's about setting goals and prioritizing what to work on to get to these goals.
Yeah.
What are some specific ways some people could go about that?
Yeah, one of the things that I do, again, is to help people to look at what you need to do right now versus what you would like to do versus what is, it's kind of our must-haves versus our nice-to-haves, right? And there's a quote that I love. It's Bill Gates. He says, we oftentimes overestimate what we can accomplish in 12 months and grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. And so a lot of times what I'll help my clients to do is look at the things that need to happen now versus the things that would just be nice if they happened now, but could still happen in 2 years or 3 years, and you still accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And we really break out kind of 10-year goals, as Jim Collins calls it, a BHAG, right? The big stretch goal that's bigger than anything that we could kind of even think about right now. And then we break that down and we look out 3 years from now and we look at what does your dream life look like in 3 years? And then we break that and step that even further back and we say, all right, what would you like to have accomplished in 12 months, given your understanding of what the bigger dreams look like? And from that 12 months, then we look at the next 30, 60, and 90 days. And breaking that all down, right? Setting and prioritizing everything. That's what we do when I'm working with clients in a defining success VIP day. And what we basically do then is you come away with what's called a success blueprint. Now you have a vision, you have an understanding, you have a clarified understanding of where you're trying to go. You also have a clarified understanding of what it's going to look like when you get there. And you have the different steps along the way that you're trying to accomplish in order to get there. so that you can then begin to start planning. And that takes us to step 3, which is, of course, scheduling our priorities.
Yeah. Before we get to step 3, what are some ways that people can do to remind themselves of like their 10-year goal, 3-year goals, 30,
Yeah,
90, 60 goals?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so there's a couple of different things in our program. What we do is we have people do like I said, it's a success blueprint. And so they create a document that they get to kind of refer to often, at least quarterly, when they're looking over what are they trying to do for the next 30, 60, 90 days. And so they have this success blueprint because just like home builders, when they're building the house, they refer back to the blueprint, back to the plans as they get to each stage. The same thing as we get to each quarter, and even as we get to each month, you want to look back at your blueprint to make sure that you're still building in a line, to make sure that nothing has changed. And if things have changed, then you want to update the blueprint, right? You don't want to just go from day to day because that's when it feels like you're just adrift in a sea of chaos, right? But when you have that North Star, when you have that navigational map, that's what you can do. Another thing that people can do, it's you've probably heard about this and seen it before, but vision boards are amazing, right? A visual reminder of what you're working for, of what you're trying to accomplish, right? And posting them up around your office area, up around your house, wherever you are spending a lot of your time, because it gives you a subconscious cue of a reminder of decisions that you've made, of commitments that you've made to yourself.
I'm curious. Do you have a vision board someplace in your home?
I do. I have a vision board that we have over in my bedroom, and then I've got a number of different things. So I've got a couple vision pictures on my phone, and then I also have my blueprint that's on my computer. So like I said, every quarter in my business, every quarter I meet with my team and we look at our kind of success blueprint for the business, and then I also look at my personal success blueprint for myself.
Cool. I'm curious. Like, what was on your vision board, let's say from like 5 or 10 years ago, and like how does that compare to where you are now?
Yeah, no, I love it. As a matter of fact, my vision board 5 years ago, there was having a house that was big enough so that I could have my office at the house and both of my kids could have big enough rooms so they could enjoy themselves and have friends over and have sleepovers. And then we could still have a playroom and we could have guests over and all the rest of that. And now we live on properties about 30 acres, and there's plenty of room for the kids to run around and plenty of room for the dog to enjoy himself. And my office is out here. We've got a converted garage, so it's an entire office that's set off from the house. And so everything that was there. What else was on that list? I wanted to take the kids to Disneyland or Disney World. We had been to Disneyland. I wanted to take the kids to Disney World. We had been able to make that happen. I wanted to be able to speak a number of different times in front of audiences, and we've made those things happen. So the cool thing about having the vision board is when you start checking things off and you start seeing the progress and you start seeing the growth. And it was really an amazing, awesome thing. And then now like I was just telling you, we're in that period of transition. We're in that period of shifting where I'm starting to look at how many businesses am I going to have under my holding company? What are the revenue targets that we're having? What are the income targets that we're looking at, and all of those things? So I'm in the process of building actually a new vision board, even as we speak.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. I always create my own vision board. Like I will write things down in my journal and keep on having these ideas to create my own, but I haven't really done it myself. So
yeah, a vision board works, and then and writing down in your journal can work too. There's another activity that I have my clients do called a 3MIQ, and I got this from Vision over at Mind Valley, and it's 3 most important questions, right? And the questions are kind of, what are the experiences that I want to have in my life? And so you want to write down a list of at least 10 experiences that you want to have in your life. And I have my 3MIQ board that's up as well. And, some of the things that are on my 3MIQ board are to eat in great restaurants on every continent, right? To go, and I'm a martial artist. And so one of my favorite things, kind of bucket list items that I wanted to do is to be able to go and see the temples at Shaolin and the temples at Wudang Mountain in China. And to do a couple of different things, but you want to have just experiences. It doesn't have to, it can just be personal things that you want to do. And it doesn't have to be in a particular order or on a particular day. You can put it on a day if you want to, but it's just things you want to do. The second question is, how are you going to need to grow in order to have those experiences?
Mm-hmm.
And so what are the things that you're going to need to grow in, and what are the things that you want to grow in your life in general, right? So I want to learn how to I speak a number of languages. I want to learn to speak a couple other languages. I want to travel. I want to be the type of person, like one of the things that's on my 3MIQ that's so cool about where we're going in this stage of life is I wanted to be, I knew that I wanted to run a company that was a multi-million-dollar company, right? And so now one of the things that's happening is I'm a partner in one company that's a multi-six-figure company. I run another company that's a multi-six-figure company. And then we're looking at making even more partnerships. And so the multi-million-dollar company is coming to the fore. I'm actually already one of my clients. I'm running I'm the interim COO for a company that's doing, multiple seven figures. And so I'm in my growth phase of being that person that can run multiple 8-figure companies or run an 8-figure company. And so that's what you put in that second question, though. It's what are the places where I need to grow? And then the last one is, what are the contributions I want to make to the world? Right. And again, you want to put a list together of the things that you want to contribute to the world. And so it's so cool again, because you get to see things checked off. There's certain things. One of the things that I wanted to do on my contributions list 5 years ago was to write another book about communication. And one of the things that you'll see if you look over my shoulder right there, we just published this year my book, Courageous Communication, helping people to learn and understand how they can gain influence and be a better communicator, regardless of whether they're in charge, regardless of they have title, whether they have authority. It doesn't matter, because you're a person and you have agency. You can influence anybody in the world. And so we talk about that in the Courageous Communication book. That was one of the things that I wanted to do. And there's a number of list of things, but just being able to check those things off, you feel that progress. But you've got to first define success.
Yeah. Quick question about that, about the long-term vision, like the 10-year goal. What would you say to people who might have this idea that, oh, if I have this vision and that means I have to commit to it for the next 10 years, but what if it starts feeling misaligned like halfway through and you want to shift, but then you have this goal that you committed to, like what do people do? Like I imagine
that
people
question.
be paralyzed by that, and
No, that's a really powerful question.
Right?
Yeah, and that's a really powerful question. And it's something that a lot of people deal with. And there's two things that I would say. The first thing is, remember that you are the master of your time, right? The second thing that I would say, so if you want to change it, who's going to stop you? All right. But the second thing that I would say, so that you can deal with the internal of you talking back and forth to yourself. There's a great quote that I love by the phenomenal late Dr. Maya Angelou. And she said it this way. She said, give yourself grace for what you didn't know when you didn't know it. When you know better, do better. And to everybody out there that's listening, the big thing that I would say is, the reason why we make plans is because of what having a plan does for us in the present. It's not because that plan is actually going to be the right plan. We're constantly moving. We're constantly shifting because we're constantly learning more and understanding more. And that's one of the reasons why you want to get very clear on the destination, not so much clear on the pathway. What happens is, when you can be very clear on the destination, that destination, and what I teach my students, that destination, it's not an intellectual knowing. It's a resonance. It's an understanding that this thing is part of my future. In quantum mechanics, one of the things they say is that the present, the future, and the past all exist at the same time, right? And we are just experiencing it the way that we're experiencing it because of the fact that we can only focus on the present moment. And so the key thing about resonance, and I talk about this when I talk about the difference between kind of work-life balance, which I think is a myth, and work-life harmony, is that when something is resonating, when something is in harmony, when something is aligned, there's a vibration and a vibrational energy that is created that is greater than the individual things that came together to create that energy. It's one of the phenomena where the sun, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so the thing that I would tell you is don't worry about being wrong, because it's not a question of if you're going to be wrong. It's a question of how wrong are you going to be. Right? You're going to be wrong. There are a ton of things that I thought that I was supposed to do or thought that I was going to do when I was initially making my plans that I learned were not things that were necessary to get what I want to do. Now, the one thing that I will tell you is, again, the resonance of helping people, right? When I told you my purpose is to dramatically increase the number of people who are living their dreams, who are living and manifesting their greatness. That is not something that is put into a box that is unitarily defined. That is something I've been doing since I was younger. That is something I would do until I'm no longer on this planet in this form. And so the big thing that we want to the big thing that we want to pay attention to as we go through that is, it is okay if you don't know everything. It's okay if you don't understand everything. We're making the plans so that we have an idea of what our pathway is, what our plan is, because once we have a plan, now we know how much we're deviating, and we know we're able to make decisions rather than just to be blown about and to go wherever the wind may take us. Great General and President Dwight D. Eisenhower said it this way: plans are meaningless, but planning is everything.
Great quote. Thank you for sharing that. So your big purpose is to help people live their dream. I'm curious to hear, was that your original plan that you had, or were there some metamorphosis along the way that helped you to really gain that crisp, clear purpose?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would tell you that the articulation that I give you now has been workshopped and growing over the last 40 some years. But the key idea has always been the same thing. I have felt a call and a drive, right? And I speak of it that way. I believe that it's a calling, that each one of us has a calling and a purpose on our lives. I have felt that since I was a young kid. Understanding what it was, understanding why it was, understanding why I felt compelled to do this way, where other people may not have done it that way, or whatever the case may be. I didn't fully understand until I went through my training, worked with my mentors, worked with my coaches, and really got to understand what my calling, what my purpose was. When I'm a person of faith, so one of the things that I did is that when I get in my prayer closet and I make sure that I sit and I listen. And that was something that I learned even more recently, about a year ago, how to do a practice called listening prayer. Right. A lot of times when we pray, most of the time we do all the talking, and we don't give God any time to get a word in edgewise. Right. And for me, learning the practice of listening prayer, where come with a question, come with a query, I come with a desire for understanding, for wisdom, for whatever, and I can sit comfortably, I can sit quietly, and I can listen with the faith and the knowledge that I'm going to get an answer. And those types of things over time have helped me to reaffirm this purpose that has continually been in my life throughout my life. Now, again, I will tell you, it shows up in different ways. I'm helping people to be their best. I was helping people to be their best when I was a financial aid clerk, helping people deal with their financial aid when I was in the university, right? When I was a tour guide, helping people to decide whether or not this was the university for them and whether they wanted to go this way. When I was a Latin dancing instructor, helping people to really learn something and see that they could do something that they never thought they could do. You know how many people came to me and said, I have no rhythm, I can't learn to dance. And then 3 weeks later, they're actually dancing on the floor and listening to the beat and enjoying themselves, right? When I was an educator and teaching Spanish to my students and helping them to learn to speak another language, all those things, I was doing the same thing. But what I have learned over time is that it was more than just teaching people how to do individual activities. It was bigger than that. It was deeper than that. Those were skills that I needed that facilitate now the work that I do, helping people to really tap into who they are, what their divine purpose is, and then to move forward in alignment with that so that they don't have to worry about to walk around kind of just surviving day to day, right? The whole thing about it is the chaos doesn't go away. It's not as if we're going to ever get so good at managing that we make the chaos disappear. The trick is to allow the chaos to exist. And it's one of the things I learned in the Marine Corps. There's a publication. It's the first publication that we read as Marine Corps officers. It's MCDP-1. It's called War Fighting. And in this book, one of the things they talk about is that war is chaos. There's the fog of war. There's imperfect information. You never have everything that you need so that you can make great plans and all the rest of that. And for the people that are the managers, for the people that are trying to make everything work perfectly, they will always feel out of sorts. They will always feel like it's not working, like it's not happening. But those who will be able to be war fighters and to excel at war fighting are those that will learn to thrive in the chaos. And a lot of the things that I learned as a Marine Corps officer are things that I put into my book, Thriving in Chaos, as well, because thriving in the chaos is about being able to accept the external realities, but understand the things that you can control. A lot of people have heard that talked about as locus of control, right? And the more you can do that and understand that I'm not going to allow the chaos to get into me. I'm not going to allow the chaos to throw me off. The chaos, the wind and the storm and the waves, they may go all around, right? Remember when we talked earlier, we said you're either going into a storm, you're in the middle of a storm, or you're coming out of a storm. But the beauty of it is you are not a storm. You are in and experiencing that thing, but it is not in you. And that's how you can learn to thrive no matter what the circumstance is that you find yourself in.
Wow. So many great life wisdom there. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Before we move on to step 3, the second part of step 2 is to establish the priorities. Can you talk a little bit more about how to do that?
Yeah, the biggest thing with establishing priorities, like I said, is kind of looking at what are the things that you need to do versus the things that you want to do. What are the things that have to happen right now? And this is understanding, right? Strategy. It's understanding how do I get from A to B, and what are the things that are necessary to get from A to B, and really eliminating a lot of the things that aren't necessary so that you don't have to feel that pressure of overwhelm because you're trying to do everything at once.
Great. All right, cool. So step 3 and 4, you combine the two, setting and enforcing boundaries. I think this is the meat of it. Like, how do we do this? Because that's where the issues come, right?
Exactly. And so step 3 and 4, right? Like I said, you schedule your priorities, and that's the first part of setting boundaries. You're telling yourself and you're making a commitment to yourself. How is it that you're actually going to, set up your time? And what most people do, the one thing that I will say is that you want to start your daily schedule. You want to start your weekly schedule with the things that are most important to you. Most of the time, what we do is we put onto our schedule the things that are important to other people. And then things like hanging out with our children, going to the doctor, right? Quiet time, your sleep routine or sleep hygiene, all of those types of things never make it onto your schedule. And they get pushed whenever other people want to do things. Instead, the way that you want to set up, and this goes, Stephen Covey popularized this idea in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You want to have those rocks, those priorities, those important things in your life that get onto your schedule first. And then you want to let everything else fall around those, so that if you are going to get anything done for other people, it is in addition to getting done everything that you have deemed important for you. Now, the first part of it is putting it on the schedule. But then the next thing is, how do you make sure that you're actually able to set enforceable boundaries that you're willing to tell people are your boundaries? And enforcing boundaries is what so many people struggle with, because we don't want to be the no person. Remember, we have worked our entire lives to be the go-to person. We want people to need us, to want us around, to be useful, to be the helper, to be the team player. And that's where so many of us struggle, because again, we get stuck in the tyranny of the or. Either I can do what you need me to do, or I can do what I need to do. Right? And the biggest thing that we have to realize when we're trying to enforce boundaries is that you will never enforce a boundary that you believe is unreasonable. Right? If you don't think it's fair to enforce this boundary, you will give everybody a pass on that boundary.
Hmm.
And most of the time, what we do is we set boundaries and then we don't think about whether they're reasonable until it's time to enforce them. I'm not doing anything else for anybody. I'm tired of it. Getting on my nerves. That's what we say when we're angry. And then, of course, when we calm down, we haven't thought about whether that's a reasonable thing to say. As a matter of fact, sometimes somebody has told us that it's unreasonable. We're like, I don't care. That's it. I'm not doing it anymore. And of course, you calm down and your friend comes and they need help. And of course, what are you going to do? You're not going to tell them, I was angry and I told you that I wasn't going to do this anymore. So I'm going to say no, because that's not in alignment with who we are as people. So what do? We go and figure out how to do it. Now, there was a kernel of truth in that rant. There was a kernel of truth in that setting of that boundary, which was there needs to be more to this than just me doing for you. But that was lost in all of the unreasonable nature of that boundary. And so what people have to learn how to do is have to look at the boundaries that they're setting in a different way. And I love, there's a matrix that Stephen Covey teaches again in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. So going back to another person that I've quoted today, right? And it's the matrix that dictates and determines whether we're dealing with important things or whether we're dealing with urgent things. And what oftentimes happens to people is all of our overwhelm and our decision fatigue comes from stuff that's in the quadrant of urgent but not important. Right? Everybody knows if we got things that are important and urgent, we are the go-to people. We are the get it done people. We can get that stuff done all day. But what happens is then we start getting tricked into things that are urgent. They're not really important. And we don't figure out that they're not really important until after we do them and we feel the lack of fulfillment with getting them done because we realized that we didn't need to do them right then. It was not that serious. Right. And I remember when I was a teacher, there was a secretary in the school that she had this sign on her desk, and I used to love it. It said, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Right?
Yeah.
She was putting her boundary up. She was setting it up very easily, very quickly. And she was letting people know, hey, guess what? You're not about to make something an emergency for me. You're not about to throw chaos into my life just because there's chaos in your life. And I used to always go in there. I was all on my P's and Q's and made sure that I gave her plenty of time and everything. But it was awesome because she was able to have, it was like a no trespassing sign, right? Like or watch out for dogs, right? Like, on the other side of this fence, there might be something that I'm going to stay over here where it's safe. Right? And that lesson is so important because here's the funny thing. I wasn't mad at her because she had that sign. As a matter of fact, I appreciated that sign because it taught me how to interact with her. It let me know that if I brought something in the right time, she was going to treat me a certain way. And if I didn't, she was going to treat me another way. So if I wanted her to treat me a certain way, all I had to do was bring it to her in the timeline that she required, and life was good. And if I was going to bring something that was going to be an emergency, I needed to come the right way. Apologizing and letting her know, I know that this is my fault and this is my problem. If you can help me, I would greatly appreciate it, but I understand if you can't. Right. And so the thing that I tell my clients is, here's the funny thing about boundaries. We're worried that people will get upset with us when they find out what our boundaries are. But in all actuality, we love to know where the boundaries are because I don't want to offend you. I don't want to make you angry. And the people where you know where their boundaries are the easier ones to interact with because you know where you stand. You know what behavior is appropriate. You know what behavior is not appropriate. Think about it. You've had those friends where anything can set them off. One day, you're joking around and you're playing the dozens or, talking about each other or whatever the case may be. And they're just like everybody else. And they're telling your mama jokes and all the other type of stuff. And then the next day, that sets them off. And nobody knows what set them off or why it was. You just know that they are a completely different person. Those are the people that we like to call hotheads. Those are the people that we like to call firecrackers. Those are the people that most people walk on eggshells around or just don't really deal with and make excuses for in the group.
Yeah.
The people who you know where their boundaries are, those are the people that you feel the safest around.
So true. Never thought about it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the beautiful things about enforcing your boundaries, what it does for your relationships is it reduces the amount of chaos around you, and it makes you a safe haven for those people that you interact with because it reduces the amount of chaos in the relationship in general.
That's great. I'm curious. So you mentioned this big rock metaphor and
Mm-hmm.
as like the most important thing that should be prioritized. I'm curious in your personal life, what's like the big rock that you make sure you always get done each week or month?
That's a great question. So for me, family is my big rock.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain things that I do with my family, right? So don't generally work on Sundays, and I don't work Sundays during the day. I generally do a little bit of work Sunday evening in preparation for the next week. I don't work generally Saturday after about 1 or 2 o'clock on a Saturday if I do any work. From Saturday about noon to Sunday at about 6 p.m., that is family time. That is time that I'm going to church, that I'm hanging out, that I'm playing video games with my son, that I'm doing things with my family to let them know that I love them, to let them know that I'm around. Similarly, I I wake my kids up every morning. That's one of the things I try to be around as much as is humanly possible, unless I'm out of town. If when I'm home, I'm not doing anything before it's time to wake them up so that I can say, good morning, dad loves you. Right. And I wake my wife up, and then my wife takes the kids to school, and that's that time in the morning. So I don't allow my day to start before a certain time. I don't allow my day or my weekend to go over, a certain time, because those things are important to me. And then in my work, one of the things that's really important is I have specific blocks in my day that are for particular types of work. So there are certain meetings that I won't take between 9 and 12 o'clock during the week, because that's my time for getting things done in my creative space, getting things done for my clients, and delivering high quality. Normally, if I'm doing a meeting or something like that, especially if it's not directly related to a client, it's going to be in the afternoon on during that period of time in the afternoon or the early evening. That's because for me, my most highly productive time is that time before lunch. And so I keep it sacred for the things that are best suited for that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm curious. So if someone external tries to say, "Oh, we need to have this urgent meeting during those time with your family time," what do you say to them?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. Number one, and this is really how enforcing boundaries comes into play. Because once you set the boundary, now you got to enforce it. To your question, when somebody tries to test your boundary, what do? I'm a big fan. First of all, Gary Keller said this in the One Thing, another phenomenal book about kind of time management and being able to maximize the time, the 24 hours that you get in a day. He said, in order to say yes to something, to truly say yes to something, you have to say no to everything that's not that thing. And so one of the things that I like to do when I know that I'm saying yes to something, which means that I'm already going to say no to this thing, is I don't like to let my no be a complete no. I like to let my no be a not yet or a not me. Right? Because when somebody comes to me and they say, I have this very urgent thing, I have this very important thing, what they're saying is, I have a problem. I have something that I want to get taken care of. I have something that I want to get fixed. Just because I'm not going to be the one doing it in my time doesn't mean that their reality is that they can't get it fixed. And instead of making it a situation where it's me or them that's going to win, I like to try to figure out a way to create a win-win scenario. And that's why not yet or not me are the answers that I like to try to come to. So the first thing that I do is I work with them to try to figure out, are there other options other than me that can get you what you want, so that you don't need me to do this in order to get you what you want? If there are, that's the not me, right? And so we delegate that. We get it to somebody else. I remember when I was a defense counsel, I was one of the winningest defense counsels in my office. And at the end of my tour in defense, attorneys, junior attorneys especially, would love to come to me and ask me questions about how to do things, how to take things to court. Because again, when I would go to trial, I had a 70% acquittal record, right? And so they had lots of questions, but I'm also busy because I've got trials and I've got a lot of stuff to do. So I can't just sit down and give you an entire class, especially when I'm in court that week or whatever the case may be. But instead of just saying, no, I don't have time, no, I can't help you, which isn't in line and isn't in keeping with who I am as a person, what I was able to do was to say, well, what's your issue? I know somebody that's not busy right now. Joe can talk to you about that. Would you like to go talk to Joe? And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And then here's where the not yet comes into play. I'm out of court next week. I've got Thursday free. If you want to, we can talk about it again on Thursday. Does that work for you? And now I've gotten them what they wanted, but I've also gotten me what I wanted. And here's the key. This is the thing for me. I don't like the word compromise. I think the word compromise is a dirty word. It's a lazy way out, right? Because what compromise does, right? We know the binary. I win, you lose, or you win, I lose. And we think that we're going to be better than the binary. So we go to compromise, which is basically you lose and I lose, but we act like we win just so that we can feel better about ourselves. I don't like that. Instead, you're a creative. I'm a creative. We have been blessed with minds that can create solutions that did not exist before. And if we put those together and we look at what you want and we look at what I want, the synergistic solution, the transcendent solution is the win-win solution. And the win-win solution allows us to create something that may not have ever existed before. Because we put our minds together with the objective of how do we get both instead of settling for one or the other or neither.
Wow, I love that framing. Oh, that's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. Let's move on to the fifth and final step. What is the next step?
So the fifth and final step, of course, is sustaining the transformation. And the whole key here is this. Everything that I teach, everything that I talk to people about mastering, talk to people about regarding mastering your time. Here's the key. If you have to do this with your conscious mind all the time, over and over and over again for the rest of your life, you're going to get worn out. Because remember what we talked about. Your subconscious mind can process 2.3 million bits of information per second. Your conscious mind, 40 to 50 bits. It's a heavy lift for your conscious mind. That's why there's this thing called decision fatigue that actually affects people, where the more decisions you make throughout the day, especially when it takes a lot of brain energy, it's like working out. It's like running a race, right? You're tired at the end of it. But here's the fun part. 40 to 50% of the decisions that we make in a day are actually habitual, AKA we don't even think about them. So I want you to think about this, and your listeners out there think about this. When you brush your teeth this morning, did you think about which hand to brush your teeth with? Not at all. It happened naturally. It happened automatically. When you're driving and you're driving home, and everybody's probably had this experience before, you're about to drive to the house. Those of us who drive, for those of you all who don't drive yet, I'll have to come up with a different analogy, but this one you can imagine, right? For if you're driving home and you're coming home from work and you're like, I got to stop by the store, and you decide I'm gonna stop by the store on the way home, right? You might even tell your significant other or tell somebody I'm gonna stop by the store and get that thing on the way home. So you're driving to the house, but then you get a phone call and you click it on and you're talking about what you're doing next week and all the rest of that, and then you wind up in your driveway, and then you remember as soon as you cut the car off, you're like, oh man, I was supposed to go to the store. How did you get to the driveway? Right? Because you were talking, you were paying attention. You weren't even thinking about what you were doing. Your body was on autopilot driving you home, because it does that all the time. They did a study on lab rats, and one of the things they were doing was trying to figure out what part of the brain, where habit lives. And what they figured out is there's a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. But here's how habits actually get formed. In the studies they did, they had, some chocolate in a maze, and they would click a latch on a door, which was kind of the trigger. And before I finish the story, I want to give everybody the framing of it. So the way habits work is trigger, behavior, reward. Trigger, the thing that tells us that we're supposed to act. Then we do that action and we get a reward. As we do that, it creates this pathway in our brain. And what happens when they did it with the rats, they noticed that they would click the gate, and that would trigger them. And then they could smell the chocolate, but they didn't know where it was. So then they would sniff and they would scratch, and they had, They had electric wave readings where they were looking at the brain waves of the rats while they were doing this. And when they first would go into the maze, the first couple of times that they would do this maze, their entire brain would light up. They were using every part of their brain to try to figure this thing out, right? This is that conscious effort trying to find the chocolate. And of course, they're scratching and they're sniffing and they're moving. And eventually they would get to the chocolate and their brain would be like, yay, we got it. And then they go back out, they take them out of the maze and they send them back. And over time, they didn't move the chocolate. They didn't change the maze, but they got better and better at getting there, of course. But the more important thing was over time, they used less and less and less and less and less of their brain to find the chocolate. And so what they found was that the basal ganglia uses about 10% of the brain energy to do habitual tasks. And so sustaining the transformation is all about getting better and better at being successful over time because you create success habits instead of just success actions. Right? So if you remember, we talked about creating a success blueprint and we talked about making sure that you're looking at your success blueprint quarterly and that you're looking at your priorities weekly and that you're looking at your daily priorities and you're going through this and you start to build these habits so that these actions become habitual. And so over time, becoming successful, mastering your time, maximizing the amount of time that you have in a day gets easier and easier and easier. And that's why you begin to see people who seem like they're living 3 or 4 lifetimes in the same span of a day that everybody else is doing their 24 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So the last step is creating the habits for transformation. And the first step to reaching success or getting closer to your purpose is to have that definition, vision in place. But let's say someone does know what their purpose is and they have the plan and they know what kind of habits they need, but then they end up doing nothing about it because they are stuck in their comfort zone. They're fearful of many things and they feel overwhelmed. Like so many obstacles, so many people are in that zone. So what should these people do to actually take the steps into their purpose?
Step? No, that's a really good question. And it's something that happens to a lot of people, right? It's not about knowing what to do, right? I tell my clients all the time, most of my clients are very high achieving, right? So they're highly educated. They've read the same books that I've read, right? They've seen the same TED Talks that I've seen. They've had coaches. They've done all the stuff, right? Most of us know what we need to be doing. The key thing is that, and what I help my clients with is to understand why you're not doing what you know you should be doing, because that's your major obstacle. And once we can see that obstacle, then we figure out ways to overcome it. And so one of the things that I would say is anybody that finds themselves in that situation and they're really ready to move, right? So there's 2 different types of people. Like you said, there's people that are in their comfort zones and they don't really have a reason to move. There's an old story that Les Brown used to tell about, he went over a friend's house and they had one of those wraparound porches. You know, everybody's outside. They're playing cards, playing dominoes, just hanging out. It's a nice summer day. And so Les Brown goes by. He's going to talk to all the friends and you know, he's just saying hello to everybody. And he starts to hear this noise. He's like, what is that noise? And then, it went away and didn't hear it. So he started talking to people again. He hear it. But then a couple seconds later, he hears it again. And he's like, nobody else is acting like they hear anything. So he's like, am I hearing something? Is this just me? What's going on? What is that noise? How do y'all not hear that? And I'm like, oh, that's just the dog. He's just over there laying on a nail. He'll be all right. And it's like, what do you mean? He's laying on a nail. Don't we need to take care of him? He's like, no, he's fine. He's laying on a nail. When it hurts bad enough, he'll get up. And so often, that's what happens. There's a lot of people that are in their spaces where they're in those comfort zones, but it's not. There's no urgency. There's no need for them to move anywhere. There's nothing calling them or pulling them strong enough to move. And one of the things that I would say is, if you're stuck in that space, if you feel like you're constantly kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, maybe I'm going, maybe I'm not. You got to really look at what is it that you're losing. One of the questions that I ask when people come by our Legacy Builder roundtables, one of the questions that we ask in the roundtable is, what is your being out of alignment with your definition of success? What is your complacency? What is your not doing what you need to be doing? What is it costing you? All right. Because a lot of times we don't focus in on how much it's costing us and how easy it is to do the work compared to what it's costing us to not do the work. So that's the first thing that I would say. For the people that are stuck, figure out what it's costing you, figure out why you want to move, figure out that you want to move and that it's imperative to you. Make a decision, right? Decision comes from the Latin root decidir, right? Which the etymology of that word is to cut away from or to cut off from, right? And so the idea of making a decision is to cut yourself off from all of the other options. If you remember when we talked about Gary Keller, to say yes to something is to say no or to cut off all the other options, right? And once you make that decision, then the next thing is to figure out how to get there in a way that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, that you don't have to build the blueprint yourself. Find a coach, find somebody that's done it before, find somebody who can walk alongside you and guide you. One of the ways that I like to talk about it is find somebody who's already navigated the minefield so you don't have to step on the landmines. Okay? And so that's what I would recommend anybody that's listening, that's really interested in this. Like, don't do it on your own. Realize that there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Wow, it's incredible. I want to take a shift gears a little bit and learn more about your purpose journey. I'm still curious to learn more about your life. So you mentioned that you've always felt like you had a connection with your purpose since you were a young person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can
Mm-hmm.
you share like what that journey was like when you had this idea or your vision of your purpose and how you actually stepped into it in the first place earlier on?
Yeah, no, I love to share. So I started off, I'm originally from Chicago, South Side, South suburbs. And one of the things that I always like to say is I grew up what I like to call hood adjacent, right? So I wasn't in the hood. I was never a hood kid. I was never one of the kids that, right? I don't have a lot of the same hood stories that, that a lot of my friends grew up with. My parents always made sure we went to good schools. I was made to stay out of trouble. I got in trouble a lot trying to get in trouble. So I didn't have those stories, but I was in spaces. I was in areas. So yeah, like I've been robbed before. I've had, I've had a gun pulled on me before. So I've had those types of experiences, but I've never been, really deep into everything. But I got to go to good schools. I got to see different experiences of the world, but I also got to see what the urban problems were. And so growing up, one of the things that I saw was that there were two different worlds and there were two different lives that people were living. And the people that I was going to school with weren't smarter, weren't better people. They didn't make less mistakes than the people that were in my church neighborhood and in my cousins and my family's neighborhoods, but they were definitely living different lives. And I felt a calling, like I said, a tug early on to help people to be the best they could be, because there were so many people that I saw that had given up on life, that were just tired of the struggle to survive. They were tired of just surviving the chaos day in and day out. And I remember that from a young kid. I wanted people to feel that they could do more, that they could be more, they could have more. And so originally I went to school to learn about economics and to learn how to speak, how to teach, how to train, how to interact with people. And so I got a degree in economics and a degree in speech communications. And then I went to graduate school to become a teacher, because education was the way. Education was how I thought that I was going to make the big difference. Like we talked about before, education was what I thought the pathway was to get to that place where I'm helping people to see that they can be more, that they can do more, that they can have more. And I was training and I'm progressing in my educational career. I taught about 6 years and I was on my way to being a superintendent. And one of the interesting things that happened to me, I'm teaching in the Memphis City school systems at the time, which was one of the 20th largest school districts in the country. And it was as if I was seeing my future, because there was a superintendent that had come back to Memphis City schools. She was now the superintendent. She was a graduate of the Memphis City school system. She was someone who had grown up in Memphis. And so she had made good. She had went away. She had gotten her credentials. She gotten her degree. She got all that stuff. And then she had come back. And one of the interesting things was I loved the program that she was running, but didn't necessarily galvanize everybody else. And I didn't see it at the time, but in 18 months, she was no longer the superintendent. And I was shocked. I was baffled because I thought that she was a great leader. I thought that she was going to be the person. She had done the right things, but it taught me that I didn't know as much about leadership as I thought I knew. And it really scared me because I was like, that's me in 20 years if I just keep on the way that I'm going. And so that really led to what I call my leadership sojourn in my life. And I went to two different places. Number one, I went to law school because I wanted to understand the system of laws and how things happen, because there were a lot of things that happened behind the scenes and it happened outside of the school district and school system, but that impacted what she was trying to do. And I was like, there's more to making change in society than what I thought. And the other place that I went to really learn and understand how to lead people was what I like to call the greatest leadership training academy in the history of the world. I became a Marine Corps officer and went through the Marine Corps officer training programs. And during my time as a Marine Corps officer, I got to see the system from many different angles. I was a defense counsel, like I told you. So I was defending Marines and sailors who had been accused of committing crimes. And like I said, 70% of my clients that I took to trial were actually innocent, and I was having to work to prove their innocence, which showed me that there were some interesting issues with the system. But I needed to get into a different place in the system to really understand where those things were happening. And that's when I raised my hand to become a company commander, because now I'm in the room where the legal decisions are happening. And so I commanded a company of about 220 Marines and sailors that turned into about 380 Marines and sailors. And so during that period of time, I got to see a lot and learn a lot about leading people and getting people and taking care of people, right? I had to fire Marines. I had to deal with Marines who were deserters. I had to do a number of different things and help people to understand that just because you're not good for this team doesn't mean you're not a good person, right? And during my time in the Marine Corps and leading in different areas, I really got to understand two things. One, I understood that leadership is about people, and it's about helping to get the best out of people, right? What we say at the Legacy Leadership Consulting Group is that leadership is facilitating the manifestation of greatness in others. It's all about people. It's not really about you. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, the other thing that I had learned along that journey was that I used to think that if you were a bad leader, it was because you didn't care enough about people, you didn't work hard enough, or the worst thing, you had an ego that was so big that all you cared about was power. And what I really got to learn about when I saw a lot of leaders that were getting bad results and bad outcomes was that there were a lot of leaders that were suffering in silence. There were people with big hearts, people that worked really hard, people that cared a ton about the people that they led. But what they struggled with was understanding how to get the best out of people. And so that's really what led me to starting the Legacy Leadership Consulting Group, where we help leaders to get the best out of themselves and those they lead. Because if we can help the leaders, then we're taking care of their people as well. And most importantly, if we can not only teach the leaders how to lead, but teach them how to create more leaders. And as the old adage goes, if you give a person a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach a person to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. More importantly, and this is our spin on it, if you teach a person to teach fishing, you can feed the whole world forever.
Wow, that's beautiful. Did you have any hesitation before you moved to this new phase in life where you are?
Oh yeah, there's hesitation every time because it's the unknown, right? That's the leap. But again, like I told you, I'm a person of faith, and I believe that this plan is not my plan. It's God's plan, and ultimately, what I try to do is to make sure that I'm walking in alignment with the plan that God's already laid out for me. Because the more aligned that I am in that plan, the more aligned I am with that purpose, right? The better everything will work, and the more I will begin to understand. Even if I can't understand it now, as time goes on, when I'm in alignment with that, with God's will, then things seem to work out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, totally. I see we only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to switch gears to our lightning round. I'm just going to ask you a bunch of short rapid fire questions. You answer as long as or as short as you want. So, what is one thing you like to do to relax?
One thing I like to do to relax. So there's a couple of things. One is I like to play golf. Love being outside. Love being able to be athletic and to be challenged and to just be able to relax. The other thing I like to do is either watch TV or just kind of sit and meditate and relax.
Great. What is one thing you like to do for fun?
So therein lies that I love to play golf for fun. I love to play jujitsu as well. Like I said, I'm a martial artist. And then I play basketball. I used to play a lot more when I was younger. And now as I've gotten older, it's shifted more towards golf and less towards basketball.
Cool. What is one thing that makes you enthusiastic?
Hmm. The thing that I love and the thing that lights me up every day is being able to know that something that I'm doing is helping another person to see a better horizon, more opportunity in the world, to see that they can be more, that they can do more, that they can have more. When I see that light bulb go on in somebody's eyes, when they understand something, and now that's unlocked so many doors for them, that is, knowing that I had something to do with that is one of the greatest joys in the world.
Love it. What is one habit you always do for a great day?
Say that one more time.
What's one habit you always do for a great day?
So my habit is my morning routine. Every day I wake up with gratitude.
Oh, I love that. What is one habit you are working on?
Working out. So I have always worked out for goals. So I was in the Marine Corps. We had fitness tests that we needed to do. So I work out, everything like that. Trying to stay fit and stay in shape as just a normal, regular person, right? Because I played sports before that. So it was always for the season or to play a game or to do whatever. Trying to do that as a normal, regular person in your mid 40s is a whole different animal in and of itself.
What is the most important lesson you've ever learned? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
The most important lesson I've ever learned. Give yourself grace for what you didn't know when you didn't know it. When you know better, do better.
Love that. What's a book that changed your life?
So I'll give you two. Practical one and a overarching one. The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss is the practical one. It opened my eyes to a whole new way of doing things. And then the overarching one that opened my eyes to a whole new way of thinking about life was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Amazing book. If you're not doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing instead?
It's a really good question. I guess the answer would be might be practicing law, or I would be trying to get onto the senior PGA tour.
Oh, love that. And how would you describe your ideal life?
My ideal life is waking up every day, loving my family, and spending my days helping people to be the best that they can be that speaking, teaching, training, leading, whatever it is. It's pouring into people, but it's pouring into people from my abundance, because every day I'm waking up living in alignment with my purpose.
Are you living it now?
I am living my ideal life every day, right?
Beautiful. Yeah. And lastly, do you have any requests for our listeners?
So I think a couple of things. Number one, I would say for everybody that's hearing the sound of my voice, remember that you have a purpose, right? Remember that you're here for a reason. Don't allow the negative fear mongering in the news and in everything that's going on to make you forget that there's a reason for you to be here, that there's a gift that you have, that there is greatness within you, right? Always know that. Always remember that. Even if you can't see it right now, even if it doesn't seem like it, remember, sometimes you're going into a storm. Sometimes you're coming in the middle of a storm. Sometimes you're coming out. But always remember what's inside of you. And then the other thing that I would say is live every day like it's on purpose and in alignment with your purpose, because you're destined for greatness.
Oh, wow. So inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. And where can people find you, Robert?
Yeah, so people can find us the easiest way. I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Robert Heath Sr, SR 007. If you go look at me on LinkedIn, we can also go to our website at tllcg.com. That's T as in Tom, L as in Larry, L as in Larry, C as in Charlie, G as in golf.com. But the easiest way is if somebody wants to, reach out or anything, they can just email us at support@tllcg, and we can connect with them that way.
Sounds great. I'll add all those links into the show note. Oh, Robert, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and insights and your stories. That was so inspiring. Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me. And I wanted to tell you, I want to do something special for your listeners. So one of the things that we have in my book, Thriving in Chaos, is a couple of activities like you were talking about on figuring out what success looks like for you, figuring out what your purpose is and things like that. So for anybody that wants to get, basically there's an activity pack that we're going to send over to Wing that he can that we can get out to you all. Just all you have to do, there'll be a link that we put in the show notes that you can get that. It'll be our free gift to anybody that's listening.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much on behalf of everyone. Wow, what an incredible conversation with Robert Heath Sr. I hope you're walking away from this episode with as much inspiration and actionable wisdom as I did. Remember, as Robert said, you were created for a purpose, and every day is an opportunity for you to live in alignment with it. And if Robert's message resonated with you, and you're ready to step more fully into your purpose, he's offering some free clarity calls just for our community. This is your chance to connect with a true professional, someone who can help you get unstuck, gain clarity, and start living the life you were born to live. There's an email in the show notes to book your call with Robert, so don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. And don't forget, Robert has also generously shared some free tools that can help you to find your success and lead with impact. You can find the links to download them in the show notes, so make sure to check them out. Now, as for me, I too have something exciting to share with you as well, my friends. If you are aspiring to be a purpose-driven solopreneur or a startup founder, then this one is for you. I'm launching a brand new newsletter where I'll be sharing my own journey, the ups and downs, and the lessons I'm learning as someone navigating my own purpose-driven solopreneur path. My goal is to provide you with the insights and inspiration from my own trials and errors so you can drive on your own solopreneur journey. Details on how to subscribe are in the show notes. I'd love for you to sign up. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who could use this message. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to A Working Purpose on your favorite podcast platform so you'll never miss an episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friends. My name is Wing, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.